Saluton from BA. This is a Rorschach Multilateral update from the 18th of February 2025, a summary of what's going down in the world's major multilateral institutions. Our first story this week is about economics. On Sunday the 16th, the head of the International Monetary Fund stressed that emerging economies need to stay adaptable and strong to handle global economic shocks. Kristalina Georgieva pointed out that high interest rates and geopolitical conflicts are creating financial uncertainty. While some developing countries are managing well, others are struggling with debt and inflation. Also on Sunday, Marco Rubio, the United States Secretary of State, praised Lithuania for boosting its defense spending, calling it a model for other NATO countries. His remarks follow President Trump's suggestions that the US might not defend allies who don't invest enough in their military. Rubio emphasized that NATO members should meet their financial commitments to strengthen the alliance. A NATO agreement states that funding for the military organization should be at 2% of the country's GDP, but Trump has pushed for 5%. Lithuania committed to boosting spending to between 5% and 6%. NATO membership and expansion and the United States' role in NATO are coming to a head, as the US plans to have a high-level meeting with Russian officials in Saudi Arabia on Wednesday the 19th about ending the war in Ukraine. NATO allies in Europe have been left out of the negotiations. Speaking of Trump, Brazil's president said on Friday the 14th that he may file a complaint with the World Trade Organization after the US president suggested he might reinstate tariffs on Brazilian steel. The country's finance minister hinted at other possible retaliatory measures, including higher taxes on US products. The US potential tariffs have raised concerns as Brazil is a key supplier of steel to the United States, and officials warn that such actions could strain economic relations between the two nations. More countries are also formulating plans to pressure the US to reduce the tariff impact on their economies. On Friday the 14th, the World Health Organization's European branch announced its support for labeling alcohol products with cancer warnings. This recommendation is part of a broader initiative to raise awareness about the risks of alcohol consumption. The organization argues that clearer warnings will help people make informed choices and reduce alcohol-related health issues. While some countries already include labels on alcoholic beverages, this push aims to make such warnings more widespread across Europe. Health experts stress that even moderate drinking increases the risk of several types of cancer. In other news, according to a study released on Thursday the 13th, a new initiative from the Inter-American Development Bank, private partners, and regional governments has helped improve healthcare for 18 million people across Central America by strengthening health systems in underserved areas. The program has focused on maternal and child health, vaccinations, and disease prevention. It has also improved access to medical supplies and trained healthcare workers. Officials from the bank say the initiative has led to better outcomes for vulnerable communities, proving that targeted investments in public health can make a lasting impact in the region. On Monday, the 10th, the UN Security Council raised concerns about the growing threat of the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, operating from Afghanistan. Officials warned that the group is expanding its influence and could pose a danger beyond the region. ISIS has carried out deadly attacks in Europe, Asia, and beyond, and according to the UN, it is recruiting fighters while taking advantage of Afghanistan's instability. The Council urged the Taliban to prevent terrorist groups from using the country as a base. There are also worries that the ISIS rise could worsen security challenges globally. ISIS has not been a large focus of multilateral politics in recent years due to other international conflict groups taking prominence. Still, militants of the group remain in certain regions of the world. Next up, the European Union released a statement on Saturday the 15th criticizing the recent presidential elections held in Georgia's Russian-occupied Abkhazia region stating they don't acknowledge the election's legal framework. The EU reaffirmed its support for Georgia's territorial integrity and sovereignty as recognized by international law and emphasized its commitment to a policy of non-recognition regarding the occupied regions. On that note about Russia, the UK criticized the country for continuing its aggressive actions in Ukraine at a meeting of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe on Thursday, the 13th. A member of the UK delegation stated that despite Russia's allegations of openness to peace negotiations, it has opted for further violence instead. He emphasized that Ukraine's resistance remains strong, defending its sovereignty while reclaiming territory. The UK also stressed that any peace plan must hold Russia accountable and respect Ukraine's territorial integrity, warning that any failure to do so could lead to more conflict. In Africa, the 38th African Union Summit kicked off in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, focusing on justice, leadership elections, and reparations on Saturday the 15th. Leaders gathered to discuss critical issues like regional security, economic progress, and the Union's influence globally. A major point on the agenda was electing senior officials, including the chairperson, deputy chairperson, and commissioners. This year's theme was Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations, which highlights the need for institutional reforms and addressing key challenges across the continent. The Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries projected an increase of about 1.5 million barrels per day of oil production in 2025, according to a forecast released on Wednesday the 12th. This growth is expected to be fueled by rising demand for transportation fuels, particularly due to strong air travel and road mobility. Currently, global production fluctuates and was at just under 1 million barrels per day in January. While global politics are intense, environmental concerns remain. Illegal trade, habitat destruction, and climate change are causing a severe decline in Pakistan's Indian pangolin population, according to a report released by the Worldwide Fund for NATO on Saturday the 15th. The species, found only in South Asia, is critically endangered, with its numbers plummeting, especially in the Pothohar region. The organization's branch in Pakistan is urging immediate action, including stricter penalties for poaching and illegal trade. Conservation projects like the Saving the Pangolin of Pakistan initiative aim to protect the remaining populations. The species' future is uncertain unless further protective measures are implemented. Still in Asia, on Saturday the 15th, at a regional conference, prison leaders across the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, expressed their support for the Philippines' proposal to establish a regional agreement allowing convicted individuals to serve their sentences in their home countries. This initiative aims to strengthen regional cooperation and ease the burden on foreign prison systems. The proposal is set to be presented to higher officials in each ASEAN nation for further consideration. For our final story of the week, on Friday the 14th, the Court of the Economic Community of West African States dismissed a case brought by two NGOs against the Nigerian government. They alleged rights violations due to the government's failure to build a dam on time in Nigeria. The NGOs said that the delay caused flooding and harm, but the government denied the allegations. The court ruled that the NGOs lacked the capacity for public interest litigation. It said that the plaintiffs didn't demonstrate how specific victims were affected. The lawsuit was dismissed in its entirety for not meeting the necessary legal criteria. And that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. But hey, don't leave yet. In case you didn't know, if you're listening to us on Spotify, you can leave comments or questions in the episode. Check out the comment box. Don't worry, the comments are private by default and we won't publish them. If you want us to get back to you, share your email. Your feedback makes our updates better. See you next week.